One. Hello. We're here with some certified ULA life coaches, a couple of dogs, and who knows how many goldfish. And we're here to talk about gratitude and growth tonight. We are so thankful for so many blessings, and especially we want to give thanks during the month of November. But what happens when your life is turned upside down by a serious personal illness, or maybe a loss of a job, or maybe you have overwhelming debt because you lost your job this year, or maybe it's a death of a family member that was really close to you, or perhaps a close friend is just going through some struggles and it hurts your heart. How do we find gratitude in those situations? It seems really difficult to be grateful in those situations. But we're going to talk tonight and maybe tell some stories about how each of us have been able to find gratitude. And we found that it actually helps us get through those hard times. So, Colette, can you tell us a story basically about how gratitude became such a big part of the ULA framework?
Sure. I am going to talk to you. If you are new to ULA, then you may not have heard this story before, but Dr. Dave, one of the co-founders of the ULA book, the story is actually in this book, and I am going to spill a little bit of the beans tonight. I'm not going to read all of it, but I am going to talk to you about the story, and if you follow the ULA guys, then you will have heard this story before. But Dr. Dave he's known as the ULA Seeker, and when he was at rock bottom, he had lost his business, he had lost his marriage, he had lost everything, and was living in a motel, and he was driving his mom's beat up Taurus. His sister would talk to his sister all the time, and she would always tell him to be grateful and have faith. Everything works out for a reason. And he used to get so upset with her and tell her, like, why, how can this get better? Like, this is the lowest of the low. And shortly after he was at the rock bottom, his sister kind of turned tables, and he had to become the person that was coaching her and inspiring her, because her son, Jared, he was in his junior year of high school. And he was a big dude playing football and didn't come down, but he had leukemia. And so in here, the story talks about Jared and how he taught Dave the true meaning of what gratitude was. So I'm just going to read you a little tiny bit of it and kind of let it sink in, because when you hear this story for the first time, or even for the 4th or 15th time, it really hits home for some of us, because sometimes you don't really know how great you have it until you don't necessarily have it anymore. So this is the part where he's kind of talking about Jared and his sister. It says, a short time later, the doctor confirmed that it wasn't just back strain, but a very strenuous form of bone cancer. At that moment, the world stopped for my sister and her husband, and they had to start making choices that no parent should have to make. The doctor gave Jared less than a 10% chance of survival and informed them that the treatment would be very harsh. Jared quickly stated that 10% chance is a pretty good one. And since he was normally in the top 10% of everything he did, he informed the doctors and his family, everything happens for a reason. Everything will be fine, and to bring it on. I think it's easier for a 16-year-old to feel invincible, but not so easy for his parents. My sister, her amazing husband, and their family became dedicated to getting Jared well. The chemo and radiation treatments began, and when he could, Jared miraculously continued to play football during his treatments. Talk about an Iron Man, right? He ran like crazy, scored touchdowns, always maintained a positive attitude. And my sister and I talk often about the majority of our conversations started or ended with what she stressed about and what she was always grateful for. Gratitude was our word. We spoke it often and we used it as a tool to get through the craziness that comes with cancer. Jared made it through the radiation and chemo treatments, and his surgery to remove the tumor was successful. Jared went to prom and to spring and graduated from high school, and he influenced many people and often stated that he knew the reason he had cancer. It was his destiny to teach everyone about being strong. His strength, in fact, stated as JJ Strong started a JJ Strong movement. Everyone was wearing JJ Strong t-shirts and wristbands. That summer, after Jared graduated, he was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia that is brought on by the harsh chemotherapy and radiation treatments. So another full-on fight began, and my sister and I continued talking on a daily basis, more about her current situation than mine. After months of fighting, Jared's body had had enough. And with his mother and father by his side, he took his last breath and left our family. Before he died, he told my sister that he was grateful that he got cancer instead of his sister or brothers, his friends, or the rest of the members of his family. He was grateful that God chose him for this. Everything happens for a reason. Jared has inspired people to tuck their kids in a little longer at night. He's inspired people to pray harder and love deeper. If I live to be 90 years old and it will be hard to live up to that legacy left by my nephew. So it goes on to talk about how he found this notebook about all the things that Jared was grateful for, and how he was so grateful that God had chosen him and not all the other people in his family. And I don't know about you, but being in a moment like that, whether you are Dave or you are Jared or you are his mom, finding the gratitude in that moment, I don't know how he did it, but talk about true inspiration for sure in that one. So I just wanted to share that with you guys so that if those of you that are not familiar with ULA kind of know the background about that. And every time you hear about JJ or JJ Strong stuff that ULA has in the ULA stores, that's what it means. So anyway, how about, let's see, anybody have any other, like maybe not loss of a loved one, but anything else that you've gained gratitude in for somebody? I don't know, Rob, Gina, anybody?
I'll say something.
Okay.
Every time I hear that story, that just like almost made me cry. To be honest with you, and I've heard it so many times, but man, it really hits you. And for such a young kid to be so wise is just amazing.
Totally.
But you know, I think with gratitude, the more we practice it and the more we become accustomed to it every single day, when something like that happens in your life, it's so much easier to get through it. And when we did our first live a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about something that I had heard about, like a freight train going through a 5-foot brick wall. If we practice every day, that wall doesn't stop the train. But if there is no momentum behind it, a little brick would stop that train in a second. So, just practicing every single day and really being grateful when we run into these things, because it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. We're all going to face troubles in our lives. We're all going to face the death of a loved one. We're all going to face hardships, financial hardships, and loss of jobs, and so many different things. And the best advice that I can give, being a coach, is when we go through these things, we have to share them with other people, because no, God does not intend any hardship or any heartache to ever be wasted. We have to take the knowledge. We cannot hold these things in ourselves and be ashamed of what we've gone through and hold on to the fear of being judged by other people. We have to share them, because those stories are what give people strength to go on with their stories. So it's so amazing to hear such a young kid to have such a huge insight on gratitude when it's hard for us as adults to have that same insight. And I think something else, I've learned gratitude over the past few years just from listening to the ULA guys. And I know I've shared this many times, but I have my tattoo on my arm that says, be grateful, have faith, because I think that's the one statement that ULA teaches that I think was a life changer for me. Because no matter what the season is, I have to be grateful for the moments and I have to be grateful for the lessons that I'm going to learn. But when I look over the past few years, a few of the hardships that I've gone through, it's funny to see a lot of people. I'm still struggling with things in those hardships, but people perceive me different. And then when we come out of them, they say, Gina, you handled yourself so well. How did you get through that? How did you do that? And it's amazing to hear that, because to me, I feel like I'm falling apart, but at the same time, I'm showing, a grateful heart. And I'm telling people it will be okay. It will be okay. And I'm reminding people when they're going through those things, it'll be okay. It'll, even if it's just little pieces that we just need to be reminded, okay, you're amazing. Colette, you're an amazing teacher. I told you that last night when you were having a bad day. And, you got to say, okay, you know what? I am an amazing teacher. So just little things like that. And just the practicing and the really remembering to be grateful in those moments is what's going to be so huge in those hard times. Anybody else have a story or some wisdom they'd like to share?
I can do that, Gina.
Okay.
So thanks for sharing that story, Colette. Because like Gina said, no matter how many times we've heard it, it just kind of stops me in my tracks. And it does to remind me, how important it is to be grateful. One thing that I've learned how to do is, well, first of all, I think just this year, 2020, I think maybe some of us have maybe had our own little meltdowns here and there, just because of everything that's been going on. And it's in those times where I just had to stop, get myself super quiet, and just sometimes it's month by month for me to really look at all the things I have to be grateful for and all the things that we have, and just really ground ourselves in that moment. And the other thing that I started doing probably about a couple of years ago was, unbeknownst to the other person, sometimes there are people in my life that maybe are a pain in my ass, bug me, I have issues with. And sometimes there are people that I can't not avoid. So sometimes it's not just as easy, like I'm just not going to talk to you. Sometimes that's just not possible. So what I've learned to do was to sit and write what I'm grateful for them, and then also send them good juju, good vibrations, good prayers, whatever word you want to use that kind of fits, but send good things their way. So it's also helped me remind me, because I feel like I can find gratitude in anybody if I sit and think about it. And sometimes sending them those good thoughts has helped take my negative emotions away and help look at them in a different light, because maybe I was just stuck on one particular situation. But when I remind myself of things I am grateful for that person, it's definitely helped. So, and it is, and we don't know what the future is going to hold, and we don't know what's going to happen. So I think it's important that we do find gratitude, even in the smallest little things, and even in And it really is in the worst times or the toughest times that it is even more important. That's why, like Gina said, we have to keep practicing and building that muscle, because then it just becomes a habit. And then no matter what happens, we could always think of, what am I grateful for today? Wendy, what about you? What are some of your thoughts?
Again, thanks, Colette, for sharing that story. I think we're all very touched by that every time we hear it. And I never tire of hearing it, because it really does sort of bring us back to ground zero. And gratitude, I think we have to sort of come from gratitude. And for me, that means writing in my gratitude journal every single day. And for those of us that are married or have a significant other in our lives, one of the first things that I write every single day is that I am so happy and grateful for RG, which is my husband's initials. And then I always put a heart behind there. And I can tell you that there are days when I do not feel very grateful. And I can remember writing in my gratitude journal one morning. I had to write it actually out about 20 times. I am so happy and grateful for RG. I'm so happy and grateful for RG. And I literally wrote it out 20 times. And as I wrote it out, it's because we'd had, it was not a good night the night before, and I was still, ticked off. So, but the more I wrote it, I could feel my energy changing and shifting to gratitude from that place that I was feeling when I first started writing it. So I encourage anybody who thinks I am not very grateful today, I have nothing to be grateful for, or I'm not very grateful for that person, just keep writing it. Write it until you feel it. And you'll be very surprised at how that changes all of your energy around what's going on negative right now. The other thing that I wanted to share is that in about April, a mentor of mine shared a way to be grateful. And this was about a month into COVID lockdowns and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of us were really feeling very down about everything. And what she said is take a piece of paper and think about what good could possibly come from this. And she was talking specifically about COVID at the time and the situation that each of us was in. And she said, honestly, take the time and write down 10 things. What good could possibly come from this? And I can tell you at the time, I was not feeling very good. I actually was not even an ULA life coach yet. It hadn't even come into my radar yet. But I wrote down 10 things, possible good things that could come from COVID. And interestingly enough, when I looked at that about 2 weeks ago, every single one of those good things came out of the situation at the time. So I just found that really encouraging, because I think that when we're really discouraged about something, we cannot see the light. But if you can just take a moment and there are good things that will come. There are good things that can come from everything. So I just loved that exercise of what good could possibly come from this. So I just wanted to share that, because that was super helpful for me at the time, because it gave me hope in the moment. And it really knocked my socks off when I read it, a couple of 3 months later, when it had all actually transpired. So how about you, Amy? Have you had situations and circumstances that you've been able to be grateful in?
Of course. I think the story when we were talking about this last week that comes to mind is kind of a Jared story, and it's my own grandpa. And so I really got to watch him walk a cancer journey and doing it with as much gratefulness as he could possibly muster. And it just really affected me, because we didn't learn about it until his funeral, but he was a lay minister in the Lutheran Church for my whole entire life. And when he found out that he had malignant melanoma that had spread to his lungs and his brain and his bone, he went to his pastor friend and asked him how he could continue to serve all of us while he was going through his journey. And just like, so makes me cry now, because it's one of those things that there's not a lot of people, I think, that are able to feel that way. And so I'm really grateful for that example. And also, kind of going off what you were saying, Wendy, is I really think that it's hard to find gratefulness when you have like negative self-talk. And so I wrote down some things where, we all struggle with negative self-talk. It's a big blocker for ULA. And I think that if we can learn to rephrase some of those things and turn them into gratefulness, it'll really help with a gratefulness practice. So instead of saying, I can't do it, or this is too hard, say I'm grateful for the chance to try. Instead of saying this is going to ruin everything, say this is temporary, I'll get through this, and I'm grateful for this lesson. And instead of saying I'm a failure, say I'm a work in progress and I'm proud of how far I've come. And that, along with writing down what you're grateful every day, can really help reframe it, so that when you get into one of those really, really hard times, like cancer, financial distress, or losing a job, you're already in that mindset of being able to look on the positive side, and it's going to help you come up with solutions to what you're going through a little bit easier. How about you guys up there, Kevin and Darla?
Go ahead, sweetheart.
You go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Be Chip and Dale. No, you go first.
You go
Oh, no,
first.
you go first. Go ahead.
So those of you who know me know that, well, those of you who know us know that we're madly in love and we love our life together, right? And those of you who know me more know that I'm pretty happy and positive, and that's what you get to see. And behind the scenes, that's what you get to see. Probably 90% of the time. Is that true?
Oh,
'Cause you have-
95% of the time.
You have to kind of see yourself, right? But the truth is, that is true. The other truth is that I'm grateful for my life experience because I've been through hard things, but I also know that other people have been through much harder, right? I've been through suicide, not me personally. I'm here. But my mom took her life. I've been through a horrible divorce that left horrible scars in my heart. I've been through living with an alcoholic. I've been through violence and trauma in my home. I've been through a child being basically kidnapped and missing, and on the missing persons list type of trauma. And I'm just grateful because I was able to get through all of that through my faith, through my strength, through what God gave me to get through it all. Now I get through things because I have my lovely husband to help me also. But I'm a nurse practitioner, and if you know that I take care of women, and 1 in 4 women have been through trauma or some kind of abuse in one form or another. And just in the past 2 weeks, I've been able to coach people, counsel people. People just fall into my lap that have had a child take their life. They've had a husband take their life. They've had horrible abuse in a relationship, being pregnant with an abusive alcoholic for a partner. And I come out of these exam rooms where I'm just like, thank you for helping me with my life. And I'm so grateful that I have the knowledge and the experience and the gratitude to move forward, to be able to help women, to be able to get through this time in their life and teach them that there's tools that it's really going to be okay, you know, and to help them stay in a safe place and to help them see the light and the positivity and what they have to look forward to in the future. And so gratitude just goes so far. And part of my mantra over the last few years has been get your happy back. And people that are around me that are not happy and have been through hardship, there's like, oh, Darla, we just can't relate to that. We don't get it. We don't jive with that. We don't relate with that. Get your happy back. And I'm just like, you're exactly the person who needs it. You're exactly the person who needs get your happy back. So when you see my other things besides our ULA for you, you'll see Darla McKamey, you'll see Healthy Happies and get your happy back. And sometimes it's fake it till you make it. Do you get up in the morning and thank goodness for you that you get to have another morning and that you get to have this day ahead of you? What are you going to do with this time today, right? So what do you get to do today? And be grateful for that. And if it's hard and you have to fake it, then fake it. Fake it until you feel it. Because like Wendy said, when you write it down, even though you're not feeling it, and you write it down and you write it down and you write it down and you read it and you have that in your head, your heart will soften, your feelings will come around, and your emotions will start seeing the light. Because when you live in a negativity part, it just breeds that, and it's really hard to see the gratitude and the light. So you really got to practice this gratitude to be able to move you forward in life, because whatever happened, it already happened. So you really got to look at the forward and look forward. I love this book from Ula. It's the Ula for Women. There's amazing inspirational stories in this book. You guys, if you haven't read it, grab any of the Ula books. They're the framework of Ula, but they also have really amazing inspirational stories. And if any of you are out there and you need help with all this hardship and stuff that life brings you, and you're having trouble finding gratitude, reach out to one of us. We're all here for you. We can help you. So just know that somebody's in your pocket, somebody's here for you, and we're all here. And gratitude sounds kind of silly. Make a gratitude journal. Be happy. Get your happy back, right? But it's so much deeper than that. So it's a big deal. Practice it. What do you got, Kevin?
It has been 1 year since my dad, since we took him to the hospital in emergency. And he had been taking care of my mom, who was kind of pretty much in bed, not able to walk very much. And he'd been taking care of her for the last several years. And it really wore him out. And we were focused. She was actually in the hospital at the time for about a week, and she almost died at that time. And we were focused on her, and unbeknownst to us, we were checking on him, but the week leading up to this day, he was getting sicker and just weaker, and then we finally had to take him in emergency to the hospital. And he was having trouble breathing, and just, he told us before he went, he goes, I think this is it. And we actually were able to call my brother and sister and their kids and our kids and let him actually talk to them as best he could. He was having trouble even talking at that time. But Darla and I spent the next 4 days a year ago in the hospital with him. We were trading shifts, going back and forth. And he wasn't recovering, and he wasn't helping. And he finally, in the middle of the night, told Darla that he needed to, go home. And by home, he meant to heaven. He had been a minister for many years of his life, and he had fought the good fight and felt like it was his time to go on and receive his reward. And so there in the hospital, he was still, as he was breathing his last breaths, trying to tell me about things that I needed to do because my mom was going to need help. And up until the very end, he was focused on her and not himself. So, and it'll be 4 days on the 21st. He did finally pass away. And I believe he is in heaven and living a much better life where he is now. And so I'm comforted by that, and I'm grateful for that. But we were in for a long, hard road of helping to care for my mom. And it was very stressful. And luckily, Darla and I and several other ULA coaches and people who knew about ULA, just a couple weeks later, got to go to a conference called ULA Palooza. And it's all about the framework that is described in this book, ULA, Finding Balance in an Unbalanced World. And I have to tell you that conference basically took my insides and turned them around and gave me a new perspective on my own life and on what I could do to help other people. And it really was life-changing. And I have no idea how I would have gotten through the past year of Darla and I trying to take care of my mom without this. It was just amazing how, as everybody here has said, being grateful gives you the expectation that good things are to come. Being grateful for whatever situation you're in, it helps you know that good things are down the road. So we have gone through this past year and we took care of my mom. We took care of her through the COVID time. She was actually we had to place her in a care home. And all we could do, like many others around the country, is go visit her and be outside her window. Luckily, she had a window. And we could call her on the phone on FaceTime and talk to her a little bit. But that was our relationship, as I'm sure it has been for many people who have aging parents in the country due to COVID-19. And so we struggled with that over all those months. And finally, at the very end of August, the care home called us and said, it's about that time. Your mom is probably going to pass in a few days. So thankfully, COVID had lessened at the time, and they did allow us to go in and actually talk to her and call my brother and sister and our kids and their cousins and have her talk to them one last time before she finally passed on September 1st. So it has truly been a year of hard things that we've had to go through as a family, not to mention a great niece, one of my nephew's daughter, that also got leukemia, just like Jared. She was 3 years old, and her parents and her grandparents, my sister and her husband, dealt with that for a whole year until she passed away shortly before her birthday this year, her 4th birthday. And so this year has truly been very difficult, especially with the deaths in our family. But when you look on the other side of that, the gratitude that we have is that it brought all of our families so much closer together as we reached out to support each other in those difficult times. And I can't imagine what I would have done or how I would have handled it all without this framework. And so as we close tonight, I want to let all of you know that whatever you're going through, it's hard. And you're going to have some feelings. You may have feelings of sadness. You may have feelings of anger. You may have feelings that you just are overwhelmed by what to do in these situations. But this framework can help you get through it. And we, as well as some other coaches, are going to host a session on Saturday, December 5th, starting at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. And we're going to be teaching this ULA framework. And we're going to be looking where we are and looking at where are we in the 7 key areas of life: fitness, finance, family, field or your career, faith, friends, and fun. And we're going to be talking about, well, where do I want to go? What kind of goals and dreams do I want to achieve? so I can make 2021 a much better year than 2020. And we're going to be talking about how to make a plan and what are the steps that are going to help you get there. So we hope you will join us, because if you're going through a situation in your life where you're having trouble finding gratitude, these people here and all of the other certified ULA life coaches can help you with that. So thank you for joining us tonight. We hope that you'll be with us next week. Next Tuesday, we're going to have a special celebration, Friendsgiving. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I plan to have some ULA tea and pumpkin pie.
Wonder where he's going to
Friendsgiving.
get that from.
I hope the rest of you will join us in that Friendsgiving, and you'll enjoy us as you watch and hear us talk more about gratitude and growth. And then also put it on your calendar. There's an event on this page called Focusing Forward to 2021 that you'll join us on December 5th also.
Save the date. Come see us.
That's right.
Come get your happy back through ULA.
So thanks, everyone. We're going to sign off for tonight, and we'll talk to you next
Good night.
week.
Bye, everybody. Good night. Be grateful and have faith.
That's right.
Bye.